Right. So we have an ongoing session that is still going on in the room. So we will give another minute for that session to close so that the all the participants and everyone can join this session.
그러면은 제가 저기 화면에 나오나요? 화면 나오고.
Right. Hi, Jason. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I hear you fine.
All right. So I think everyone is here. I see. Okay, Fong and David are also there. All right. So let's start. This would be the fourth session of the GGV today and first of the several sessions on circular economy and waste. I'm Ankit Bhatt. I'm the program lead for circular economy and waste for the Asia region, and I'll be moderating this session. We focus on regional actions on managing waste. That's the topic that we will be talking about. And it's a very niche area, very specific subject that we are looking at today because the focus of this discussion is ASEAN. And of course, the lessons and the observations can be drawn across the regions in the world. But this is one of the key sort of regions where lots of action is happening. We'll have a very expert and senior panel who have been engaging on this subject for a very long time. But before we get into that, can I invite Jason to open the session, give an opening remark, and then we'll get on to the technical discussions. Jason, over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ankit. My name is Jason Lee. I'm the Deputy Regional Director for Asia. Asia, we have a number of waste management projects, and some of them, or a lot of them, are led by Ankit. And welcome to this session. We'll be discussing regional actions on what we can do together to improve waste management regionally. So waste is commonly understood as a local issue that could be managed by subnational governments. However, regional value chains and regional policies or regional actions play a large role in shaping the material flows and recycling, reuse of those value chains. So this session on regional actions and managing waste, we try to identify what we could do regionally, or what we could do what sort of regional interventions that we could make, or what sort of policies that could help and supplement the national efforts in improving waste systems. I mean, they could be regional standards, guidelines, targets, policies, trade agreements, and regional investments for processing specific waste categories and so on. So some of these we are already doing. We do have a regional waste project funded by ASEAN Korea Cooperation Fund. We are covering all ASEAN member countries. And we are working with ASEAN Secretariat and to improve waste management and increase material recovery through our engagements on integrated municipal waste management. And more recently, we initiated a methane initiative. We could help ASEAN member states better manage organic and inorganic waste streams. And we recently completed mapping the waste systems in about 20 cities in ASEAN countries, and average recycling rate is about 6%, which is much lower than some of the developed economies in ASEAN and in other countries in the world. So it is critical that we understand regional actions that we can do together to make an improvement of this. So for this session, we do have panelists representing World Bank, GIZ, and then ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies. So I thank those panelists participating in this session. And then also thanking you for joining the session. So I look forward to learning and get your perspectives on the regional actions. And let me hand over to Ankit. Ankit?
Thanks, Jason. So with that background, I mean, Jason just pointed out that we are on the verge of completing the assessments across the member states, and we have covered almost 20 cities. We have looked at waste from all perspectives. So waste management from policy to its linkages to the circularity and downstream, as well as on social and economic aspects. And what we have found is decisions on towards circularity, right? It's still very, very early days, but you do see those early signs. You also see signs of regional value chains and export of recovered materials within the region. So you do see materials moving into Thailand, into Vietnam, and so on and so forth. And there is also a lot of momentum and focus on managing plastics in a better way. So there's a lot happening, and there is of course the strong regional cooperation frameworks. There is a strong development vision. So there are those elements which are there, but then what's also lacking is harmonization and standardization. In the sense, no one country defines waste in the same way, right? So waste for everyone on paper is different to a certain extent. Local infrastructure on managing waste and material recovery is inadequate. The collection rates are relatively low. We are talking of roughly around 50 to 60%, depending on the country and the city that we are looking at. Revenue base is inadequate. I mean, we could hardly find cities which are levying cost recovery tariff, or at least operational cost recovery tariffs. There's a high level of informality. And all of these factors contribute to poor markets and inadequate investments and a lack of access to financing. So, I mean, there are some early trends in positive directions. There seems to be regional movement happening of materials, and however, the fundamental issues remain. Now, given this background, the question that we're trying to answer is, are local actions enough, right? I mean, it's perceived that waste is a local government issue, and the national governments often come in at as a supervisory function or a regulatory function, and then trade is the only aspect where there is international collaboration. So the real question is, are there regional actions which could improve and help the waste management actions and sort of functions at a local level? And the reason why we are forced to ask this question is ASEAN member states jointly have a reasonably ambitious vision, and that is translated into multiple documents in terms of frameworks, policy, or visioning documents, roadmaps, and there are more that are being developed as we speak. And these are all commitments in one or the other way. So we do see that goal, that vision, and when we sort of juxtapose that with the existing context, then there is that gap, right? And that's where this question comes up, that are local actions enough? Do we need more regional actions? Or do we need more sort of interventions that are regional in nature rather than only looking at cities and trying to fund infrastructure there? So with that context, I'll stop here and I'll invite three very experienced and very knowledgeable individuals on this subject. They've been working and helping and supporting ASEAN for a very long time on this subject. Thanks and welcome to Rieko, Fong, and David. You have their introductions on the screen, so I'm not repeating it, but Rieko has been working in this sector across the world for a very long time now. Rieko, I don't know where you are connecting from, but she is based in Washington and she spends a lot of time in this region. Fong started his career as a part of an entity which used to manage waste, so as a waste operator. So he has sort of gone through the entire process and gotten his hand dirty, so to say. So he knows what this sector is all about, and he is currently advising ASEAN as a part of the GIZ team. And David is a key functionary and is the key cornerstone of the circular economy platform of ASEAN, and he has been engaging with lots of stakeholders across the board, and he has a very good vantage point on where these regional aspects lie. So welcome everyone, and what I'll do is we'll have a panel discussion style discussion where I'll be posting a question and we will go around the table and getting your views on the subject. We don't necessarily need to have a presentation, so just feel free to share your insights on the subject. At the end of the day, it would be nice to have 3 or 4 at max action points that we can all agree on as to those are the regional actions that we need. So with that, I'll share the first question. And the first question is, what are the issues? What are the cross-boundary issues that affect waste management in the region? And I'll first request if Rieko can come in and share her views on the issues that we face today, which are transboundary in nature. Rieko?
Thank you, Ankit. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Rieko.
Okay, great. Thank you for confirming that. And before I answer your question, Ankit, please allow me to just say thank you to you, Ankit, for inviting me and also to the GGGI to have this great discussion on the regional action and waste management. I think it's been the area that the GGGI has been very intensively making an effort to support the ASEAN countries in improving the waste management. So it's really timely that we have this discussion and also have this kind of a dialogue session among that development partners like us, so that we can also have that kind of the stakeholder cooperation among ourselves as well. So this multi-stakeholder, cooperation is actually one of the keywords that I wanted to stress in this, in this session today. So I'm answering your question, and your first question: are local, actions enough? Obviously, no. I think we all know that we need to really have that different types of linkages, connecting the local to the regional to the global. So these are not sufficient yet. So that's why we still continue to have this kind of discussion. So in terms of the cross-boundary issues that we face in the ASEAN region in waste management, because of the nature of the waste management, that the issue is very much local. It's been traditionally discussed in a local context. A lot of the countermeasures are also in that, the local context as well. But because of that, the issues that we face today is like circularity agenda, trade, and, the global business development. We have to think differently that, we need to think of that, the waste, not just consumed and deposited in one place, but it could happen that the consumption and the disposal is happening in a totally different locations, right? So as Ankit already mentioned, I think that, the waste management improvement, of course, should be happening in every different places, every different locations, from the community level to the city level to the country level. But how we can, have the kind of a common platform of discussion in improving the waste management as a whole in the region would be the waste trade issue, the waste trafficking issue that we face today in this region. And this is, of course, inter-country, like among the ASEAN countries. And also it's it's the issue that we face between the ASEAN countries and the other countries in the world, right? For example, ASEAN and Japan, ASEAN and Korea maybe, or ASEAN and the EU states, right? I just checked very quickly. So what are the percentage of the plastic waste? I think this is the one of the popular waste stream that we discuss about in the context of this waste trade these days. 16% of all the plastic waste that are generated in the world at the global level and disposed of, that are arriving in the ASEAN countries. So 16% may not be sounding so big, but let's look at capacity of that, the recycling. Let's look at that, the capacity of the waste management in each country. Can we afford to accept these waste, right? So on top of what we are generating in the ASEAN region, what we are accepting from outside is a lot, right? So I think looking at and considering the regional action in this region for waste management, I think this waste trade is really something that we have to push through to have a better framework of action among all the ASEAN countries. I think how we can do that is something that I can answer later in the other panel questions. But I just want to put forward that that this waste trade agenda, waste trafficking agenda in the region and coming from the other parts of the world is something the ASEAN really needs to tackle from the very as a very urgent action these days. So just want to share that my view and the insights into this regional action that we have to think of in the context of waste management. Thanks, and back to you, Ankit.
Thanks, Rieko. So you flag in terms of issues, it's the cross-boundary movement of waste. A lot of it is not formal. So I take that message and go over to Fong. Over to you. What's your view on the cross-boundary issues that we are facing as far as waste management is concerned?
Yeah, thank you, Ankit. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I also would like to thank Ankit and GGGI for the invitation and the opportunity to join this session. GGGI is one of our partner in one of the projects I'm working in, a Muse project. So we are very happy to be part of this event. Yeah, so as Ankit introduced me, I'm working on 2 regional waste management projects with ASEAN. Muse, ASEAN Municipal Solid Waste Management Enhancement, is focusing on waste management in tourist cities. And the other project is 3R Promar, Reduce, Reuse, Recycle to protect the marine environment. Both projects are implemented until June next year, 2025. And I'm recently participated in an appraisal mission to prepare a joint follow-up project. And yeah, to this appraisal mission, which involves a couple of meetings with different stakeholders in the region, in ASEAN countries, I got quite fresh and practical insights into the challenges of waste management here in the region. So a critical concern is, of course, the transboundary character of waste and waste management. And the impact on shared natural resources as the Mekong River, where we work on, so which flows through several ASEAN countries and is crucial for agriculture and drinking water supply. And so the impact on this natural resource from waste management from one country can also lead to contamination of this river in the other country. And so vice versa, any improvement of waste management in one country is also beneficial to the other countries. And for my mission, from the appraisal mission, it became again very obvious that most of the ASEAN countries, in particularly in rural areas, lack proper infrastructure for separate collection and recycling. And so, for example, in Cambodia, where separate collection is hardly undertaken, and the little amount of recyclables are often exported to the neighboring countries, Vietnam and also Thailand. But at the same time, this happens with only little transparency on the final destination. And there's also little information if the waste is processed there in an environmentally sound manner. Similarly, in Vietnam, where recycling industry is available in larger cities, but plastic waste is also exported to China. And also there, we should have concerns over the risks associated with the processing of the waste management. Yeah, so I think it's highlighted now a couple of times through Ankit and also Rico. We have one important topic is the trade. At the same time, we have various different waste management systems and regulations in place, which are not harmonized across the region, and the absence of common definitions, criteria, also already mentioned, make the trade difficult across the region. Also, trading regulations are either not available or inconsistently implemented, leading to lack of transparency and also, as I mentioned, potentially environmental and health risks, particularly in countries with less stringent laws. And so countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam have experienced an influx of waste imports from other countries, not only in ASEAN, but also from Europe and developed countries. And they have been now introducing import regulations, which make it more difficult to trade with this less value or less quality material. But at the same time, there is no unified ASEAN-wide policy on this kind of waste trade. So each country is still managing its plastic waste imports. And I think I can confirm that there's growing recognition of the need for more regional cooperation to address these cross-border challenges. Yeah, and also from our appraisal mission, we learned that there is still a low low price for virgin material compared to recycled material. And this also for the exacerbated situation, providing little incentive for the recycling industry. So regional policy can be an instrument in addressing this economic advantage of virgin materials. Yeah, so also a clear answer from my end. Local action is not enough, but we need more regional action, more regional cooperation. Thank you.
Thanks, Phong. Yes, very loud and clear and very specific on the environmental concerns that come up because of this movement, whether formal or informal. Thanks for that. David, over to you. What's your view? What are the issues that we face?
Thank you, Ankit. And first and foremost, allow me to express my humble gratitude to GGGI for having me in this event, and to the organizing team for putting up such a great forum. So in response to your question, so waste management in ASEAN face numerous challenges driven by rapid urbanization, intra-ASEAN mobility, economic growth, and insufficient infrastructure. As city expand, waste generation increases, overwhelming local systems, while inadequate policies and public awareness intensify this issue. One of the critical issues affecting waste management in ASEAN is the generation of e-waste or electronic waste. The rapid increase of e-device driven by economic growth and consumer demand has significantly increased e-waste across regions. Study indicated that from 2015 to 19, the e-waste generation in ASEAN countries rose sharply, necessitating urgent policy intervention to improve management practice of this waste stream. Furthermore, this issue is further intensified by the lack of knowledge surrounding proper e-waste disposal as well as recycling processes. Solid waste management presents another significant cross-boundary issue in ASEAN because rapid urbanization and industrial growth have resulted in increased waste generation, which pose challenges for local governments that often lack of capacity and, of course, resources to manage waste effectively. And these disparities in waste management practice among ASEAN countries can lead to trans-boundary waste issue, where waste generated in one nation and end up in another ASEAN member state, which intensifying environmental impacts as well as public health. Furthermore, to the absence of cohesive regional strategy for waste management limit the ability of ASEAN and its member states to tackle these challenges comprehensively. And additionally, the C&D or the construction and demolition sector also contributes significantly to waste generation in ASEAN member states, which with construction activities projected to rise, especially in quick growing countries like Vietnam, the volume of this waste stream is expected to increase substantially, and existing management practices are often times inadequate and leading to environmental impacts again and resource wastage. And the lack of awareness again, similarly to other waste streams, worsen the issue. So the interplay, that said, the interplay between the environmental management and economic development also highlights the need for this region to adopt sustainable practice. As ASEAN member states strive for economic growth, the pressure on environmental or natural resource intensify, necessitating the adoption of environmental friendly practice in sectors such as C&D. And the keyword here is regional cooperation, which is essential to tackle this cross-boundary waste management issue. ASEAN member states have to work collaboratively to develop comprehensive policies, framework that address unique challenge and contexts that of each ASEAN member state while promoting sustainable practices across region. And furthermore, integrating CE or circular economy principle into waste management strategy also present a viable pathway for ASEAN member states to enhance sustainability by, for example, promoting 3R, 4R on R frameworks. Countries can mitigate, environmental impacts of waste while fostering its economic growth. So in short, the cross-boundary issue affect waste management in ASEAN are complex and interrelated. The rapid urbanization, economic growth, and the resulting increase in waste generation, particularly e-waste, construction, and demolition waste, pose significant challenge to cooperation and adoption of CE principle that is necessary to addressing these challenges effectively. So I've just stopped here. Over to you, Ankit.
Thanks, David. So I'll try to summarize the issues instead of doing a summary at the end after each question, so that would be a good segue to have the next question in. So we had waste dumping, transboundary movement of waste, formal, informal, and the environmental issues that happen because of that. Natural resources pollution, transboundary pollution movement through rivers, so contamination of water bodies, e-waste and construction demolition waste, which are getting ignored to a certain extent as compared to the other waste streams, environmental and health impact, as David pointed out. And all of you agreed that there is a lack of a regional strategy, a sort of consistent approach towards this issue in the region, and that is having multiple sort of aspects to it. And as David, as you pointed out at the end, it's a multi-layered issue. It's not a very sort of it's not single point problem that we can solve. But that brings me to the next question. If we are to address this issue, it needs to be broken down into pieces in terms of what kind of materials we are dealing with, what kind of waste streams we are dealing with. So that's the next question as to which waste streams have potential for regional cooperation. We touched upon it to some extent in the earlier question, but the more important question is how, right? So given this list of issues, what are the waste streams and how do we approach in this given context? I'll start with you first, David, and then Phong, and then Rieko. So David, can you go first and share with us your views and insights on waste streams and how do we approach them?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ankit. So in relation to the response in earlier question, so in the context of Southeast Asia, various waste streams present significant opportunities for regional cooperation. The primary waste stream with potential include, apart from plastic, which is very popular and many intervention already, and ASEAN already declared its, the ASEAN Declaration on Plastic Circularity just issued this week. So allow me to touch upon municipal solid waste, construction and demolition waste, and agricultural byproduct, which each offer unique venue for innovation, collaboration, as well as economic growth. For MSW, the municipal solid waste, it is a critical area for development, particularly in the context of waste to energy technology, because the potential for generating renewable energy from MSW in 6 ASEAN countries from a study has been estimated at over 7.20 terawatt hours by 2030, and this presents a substantial opportunity for cooperation and, of course, to invest in the waste to energy tech that can convert waste to energy, thereby addressing both waste management challenges as well as energy needs in this region. Moreover, the illegal disposal of waste, such as open burning, dumping, which account for over 30% of collected waste, underscore the urgent need for improved waste management system. And this scenario create a market for a space for innovative waste management solutions that can mitigate, both environmental impact and generate economic return on the other hand. And the second waste stream I wish to touch upon is the C&D, and especially given the rapid urbanization and construction activities across this region, the construction industry recognized as a major contributor to waste generation and environmental degradation. In Malaysia, for as an example, wood waste constitute a big portion of construction waste, with over 50% generated during certain period. Cooperation intervention can capitalize on these by developing recycling processes for construction materials, such as using recycled plastic and wood waste in new building projects, thereby promoting sustainability and lower landfill use. So the implementation of CE principle in construction can also further enhance resource efficiency and reduce waste. And we have seen construction business network with a focus on circular economy in several ASEAN member states. Another stream is the agricultural waste, particularly from crops like cassava, which mainly exists in Mekong, greater Mekong region, and it also presents significant opportunities for regional cooperation. The application of CE principle to these agricultural byproduct can lead to sustainable practice. For instance, cassava pulp wastewater can be converted into biogas, providing renewable energy source. And this approach not only address waste management, but also support local community by creating new opportunity for them in different areas. And for example, Thailand, the Office of National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy Council, long name, NEXPO, they have been spearheading a circular cassava supply chain in Thailand and neighboring country to develop the circular supply chain for this area. So in short, waste stream in ASEAN, including MSW, construction and demolition, as well as agricultural byproduct, they have substantial benefit for regional cooperation. So I just stop here and get over to you.
Thanks, David. Your mention of agro waste and cassava reminds me memories of southern Laos, where truckloads of cassava waste and sludge, which is dried, is shipped to Thailand for sometimes animal feed. Anyways, over to you, Phong. What are the waste streams and how?
Yeah, thank you, Ankit. And also thank you, David, for already very comprehensive elaboration on this question. Yeah, so I mean, we GIZ and the two projects I mentioned, we are focusing very much on municipal solid waste and plastic waste. So for me, plastic waste, in particular single-use plastic and packaging, presents a critical challenge in ASEAN region. It's significant in terms of contribution to environmental pollution and marine litter in the region. And also, I mentioned the trade, formal and informal trade. I think this makes it a very high priority waste stream for regional cooperation. And how is a good question. Basically, the actions are clear. ASEAN need to prioritize the harmonization of the regulatory frameworks, in particularly for the trade of this secondary raw material with consistent standards, not only for material and products, but also for the environmental safeguard, establishing definitions and common material criteria. And this would then align, or this alignment would facilitate a smoother cross-border material flow, ensuring consistent enforcement and also streamlined circular economy processes. And maybe harmonized extended producer responsibility schemes will incentivize industries to take greater responsibility for the entire life cycle, and then to enhance waste collection and sorting across the region. Another action in this area could be the development of region-wide guidelines for eco-friendly packaging to standardize materials and labeling. And also this would make it easier for recyclers to handle packaging waste, especially then for cross-border trade. Yeah, and also with the perspective of the Global Plastic Treaty, which is expected for the end of this year, technical and financial cooperation would support the AMS, the ASEAN member states, to meet the requirements more effectively. So from the Global Plastic Treaty, we expect that this will impose some specific requirements for reducing plastic waste, including sustainable product design, phasing out of hazardous substances. And I would say that if ASEAN countries work together and align their strategies to a common strategy, this would help them to be more effectively to meet the requirements. Although we are still not sure how these requirements will look more specifically. And also how they can cooperate is by the cooperation on the Regional Action Plan for Marine Litter Debris. This ASEAN Regional Action Plan will expire in 2025, and I think it has been already a good platform for strengthening regional cooperation on plastic and extending this plan beyond 2025 and also expanding it with more ambitious and practical targets for plastic reduction and for waste management, regional waste management plan, for coordinated measures like bans and taxes or financial instruments on single-use plastic can ensure a cohesive regional approach. And a unified policy framework will also foster stronger industrial collaboration and also drive investment in all these alternative materials and waste management technologies. And with this regard, a practical aspect could be also in terms of waste management plan. So ASEAN could explore the development of regional recycling facilities to overcome the gaps in infrastructure. Countries with limited capacity for processing plastic and packaging waste could benefit from such kind of regional hubs. So in the recent past, the ASEAN countries, I have mentioned Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, have imported waste from developed countries. So instead of importing this kind of waste from across the world, these facilities could support AMS, which lack the resources, and so to ensure proper waste management in the region. Other area where ASEAN should cooperate is to establish a regional network for monitoring and data sharing. So establishing a joint marine litter monitoring system would allow ASEAN countries to track plastic waste movements to better understand the sources of marine debris. Sharing data on waste generation, collection rates, recycling performance would also help them to design more targeted interventions and to enable the countries to hold each other accountable for meeting reduction targets. I think these are the areas where we need to focus on in terms of regional cooperation. ASEAN cannot only address the immediate challenges of plastic waste, but also create a strong foundation for circular economy. And in all the aspects that I have mentioned, ASEAN can provide the platform for regional cooperation where organizations like us, GGGI, GIZ, and others can jump in and contribute to this kind of exchange and capacity development. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Ankit.
Thanks, Fong, for a comprehensive response. And Rieko, I put you on a spot because you have the tough job of adding to what David and Fong has already mentioned. So over to you in terms of waste streams and how.
Yeah, thanks, Ankit, and thanks, David, and Fong for already bringing a very comprehensive ideas of what waste streams should be targeted. I really don't have much to add, to be honest. But I just would like to just emphasize that, you know, the construction and demolition waste and the e-waste agenda has been on the discussion regionally and domestically. And there is a, you know, Basel Convention. I think we should not forget that there is a legally binding instruments that actually control that hazardous aspect of these streams of waste, but that has not really been effectively enforced yet. So, you know, I think we have to really think critically and differently how better that each national government can enforce those the Basel Convention to meet the targets and to meet the requirements in each country. So, like, for example, C&D, of course, you know, the circularity of the C&D would be very important. The construction and demolition waste would be very important. But for example, I have been hearing a lot of that issue of asbestos from the C&D waste. You know, this hazardous waste cannot be recycled. It has to be just safely managed and, you know, disposed of. But are there any guidelines for the safe management of the asbestos in the region? No, there's no such national regulation to control the asbestos, not really existent. So there has been a discussion, but I think no one really has been, you know, talking sufficiently enough to set the safety standard, how to meet that requirements by the Basel Convention to treat the hazardous aspect of, you know, different waste streams, you know, the C&D waste as well. And as I mentioned, e-waste also has a lot of that contaminants that would be the hazardous and both to the environment and to the human and animal health. So I think, you know, of course, we can think about the you know, brighter side of making use of that the waste as a resource, which is, of course, you know, something that we all want to achieve. But also that we have to look at this, you know, aspect, the controllability of that hazardous waste in those waste streams is something that we need to think of. So that's something that I just want to add in trying to enforce that the existing legally binding convention on that hazardous aspects of the different waste streams. And of course, I want to promote a little bit about that, you know, regional cooperation that the World Bank has been contributing in terms of plastic. As Fawn already mentioned, that we also have, you know, the regional project called CMAP project that has been supporting the ASEAN Secretariat in developing that regional action on combating marine debris, and also to implement that regional action plan by implementing that the CMAP project from until 2027. And in that project, we've been conducting a lot of activities, actually. So, for example, that we are trying to harmonize that the technical standards on the sustainable plastic packaging, also to try to harmonize that single-use plastic measures among the ASEAN countries by introducing that good practices, and also some lessons learned from the other region as well. And we also try to promote the EPR and, you know, to, of course, boost the capacity building of that local and the national governments as well. So we do touch on a lot of areas, but what I want to also highlight are two things. Fawn already mentioned that maybe the harmonized EPR. I think that extended producer responsibility and making it into the regional action is something that we can really try to push forward in tackling the plastic waste, because the logistics and that, you know, material and goods and services, you know, the transaction between the ASEAN countries and also with the other developed countries are very much significant in this region. So there are already network, there are already a communication channel, distribution channels among the countries and between the countries, but we have to really make it a little bit more reinforced to have that, you know, network and the platform used for that to boost the recyclability of the plastic waste as well. The regional harmonization of the EPR on plastic waste has been discussed in the other part of the world. For example, I just recently learned that the Pacific Islands are also considering to address this regionally harmonized EPR. And the issue is the same between the Pacific country and the ASEAN countries. We do need to really improve that collection system to meet that demand of the recyclability. And what our very issue of this waste collection is that we have to reach that waste collection to the remote areas. And how we do it, I think the municipalities themselves cannot solve the issue by themselves. So we need to have the producers also involving in this waste collection. And to do that, EPR is absolutely necessary. So, this kind of thing that we have to also start discussing in the ASEAN region to think how we can make that regional EPR possible. And again, I just want to emphasize that what Juan said about that data collection system, right? I think this is something that ASEAN can immediately, address, because the ASEAN already has this, the cooperation framework, the regional action plan, and also the working group that has been regularly meeting and sharing the knowledge, right? We have the ASEAN working group on chemical waste, ASEAN working group on the marine and coastal environment. I think what we need is to establish the mechanism of the data collection and also that monitoring and reporting. This is very critical to enhance that regional network and regional cooperation, because we first need to kind of understand the baseline, what's happening in the different ASEAN countries, right? And in order to do that, we need to have a very good data collection system. So this is, I think this is also something that the CMAP project is also helping the ASEAN Secretariat to conduct. But I think it's the kind of, forgotten and, has this impression of complexity in initiating that. But it's one area and entry point that we can really try to initiate immediately. One last point, one very quick one. I think ASEAN is, categorized into 3 different communities, right? And the plastic waste agenda has been discussed very much in the environmental agenda. And in the ASEAN context, it's been discussed in the social and cultural community. Most of the ASEAN working groups that discuss the plastic agenda is also, falling under the social and cultural community. But I think what we discussed in this discussion, the EPR, that, the trade agenda, recyclability, circularity, that all, is very much influenced and influencing that economic aspect of that plastic agenda, right? So we need to have a framework and data platform that needs a very strong cooperation from the ASEAN side as well, to establish the platform to bring in the economic community and the social cultural community together to discuss these agendas. Because the technical standards that we harmonize, the policy that we harmonize, which does not only affect the environmental policy, but it would also affect the economic policy as well. So that's something that we need to think about and also start discussing with the ASEAN countries and also with the ASEAN Secretariat. Back to you, Ankit.
Thanks, Rieko. The points seem to be piling up, right? I've already listed 16 of those critical points. So yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for all the inputs. I have been reminded that we only have 5 more minutes to go. We have one critical question to respond to, and that is the actions itself, right? And I'll start with you, Rieko. And in your response, so let's try to limit to 3 actions that we feel closest to our hearts, right? I think that will be the fastest. And to start with you, Rieko, you mentioned regional EPR as one of the action points. The second action point that you mentioned was on data and reporting, right? Can you add one more action point that you feel is something that is immediately required?
Thank you, Ankit. Yes, I mentioned that too, and I think I already mentioned that third important and priority for me would be that multi-stakeholder platform. once again.
Okay.
It's very
Right.
much linked to that regional EPR as well, because it would create that platform of the
Right.
public, stakeholders and the private stakeholders as well. But what I want to also just emphasize on this multi-stakeholderness is that we need to have a better intergovernmental cooperation, not just among the countries, but also the inter-agency cooperation, which means between the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Economy and Trade, for example, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Public Works, for example, for that waste infrastructure
Right.
agenda,
Right.
and for the waste trade aspect, we need to have that Ministry of Finance and Ministry of the Custom Office needs to be very much involved, right? So that kind of cooperation, I often see are very much insufficient at the moment. So again, the ASEAN working group is now set up with that, the limited number of ministries attending each working group. But I think we need to really start thinking of expanding that and to invite that interagency, that kind of discussion. So from one country, like for example, from Thailand, we should invite the Ministry of, MONRE, and also from the Ministry, Department of Trade, Department
Right.
of, Investment, Department of, Custom Department, so on and forth. So that's something I think the ASEAN can really start thinking about and focusing on in the next few years to address any types of that waste agendas that we discussed about today. Thanks.
Diego. Fong, over to you. 3 actions that you feel strongest about. You can repeat if I mean it need not necessarily be exclusive to what Diego mentioned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think Rico has highlighted the aspect of multi-stakeholder platform. I think this I can absolutely confirm. We have, during our appraisal mission, when we met the different partners, we have observed, on the one hand, there are various stakeholders in ASEAN and also within the different ministries of environment and so on. But we also observe that there is a lack of coordination and cooperation, right? For example, under the ASEAN Environment Division, we have 3 working groups: coastal and marine environment, chemicals and waste, and environmentally sustainable cities, where we think that coordination between the activities among these 3 working groups would make ASEAN and ASEAN Environment Divisions work more efficient in terms of working towards the agenda, circular economy and marine litter prevention. At the same time, I think Rico highlighted also, it also involves other working group, in particular from the economic pillar. Circular economy is still a very economy-focused topic. So involving these areas, involving these working groups are really essential. And we also observe that, of course, there are plenty initiatives, projects working at the regional level. We know it from our working group meetings. And also there, we think that a stronger coordination, sharing experiences, and so on would be very beneficial for ASEAN. So this is something that we would like to take up in the next phase of our project, which I'm preparing. So coordinating between the working group on the one hand, coordinating among partners and implementing agencies is the other topic. And then and this continues also at the national level. So there are, when we met the national partners, we were requested to support this kind of exchanges, firstly between the private and public sector when it comes to development of national frameworks, regulations, and so on, like EPR, circular design, and so on. But we were also requested to design the project in a way that it is beneficial for all municipalities in the country. So providing a platform for exchange between or among the municipalities at the national level. So also here, multi-stakeholder exchange is very important, and also here we will take it up at the national level. Yeah, and then I think harmonization. I mean, I think it's difficult. I know it. So it's difficult to to follow up this topic in ASEAN with the current constitution, where ASEAN is not eligible to make binding provisions, but still I think it can be the platform for exchanges and also prepare the framework which can be then followed and implemented by its member states. I stop here. I know it's quite tight by time. Thank you.
No, thanks, Phong. David, you have the last say, the last word of what should be done. Over to you, David.
Yep. So actually, Rico and Phong has already covered. I would wish to second the idea on harmonization of waste management policies and standard by establishing a common standard of waste classification, material content for recycle, so on and so forth. And I seconded Rico's idea on the development of multi-stakeholder platform for cross-pillar collaboration amongst project and working group which belong to different ASEAN pillars, because as these issues are cross-sectoral, therefore we need a different type of approach in order to tackle this issue or develop regional framework such as EPR for ASEAN, as Rico mentioned earlier. And the last action is we could consider strengthening international partnership, like, for example, partner up with international organizations like GGGI to advance, waste management and circular economy goals. Thank you. Over to you, Ankit.
Thanks, David. I have been reminded 3 times that we are over time. So I really need to stop here. I wanted to summarize. There are lots of good points that are coming up. So I'll still take that liberty and do that in 1 minute, because the conclusions here are not just applicable to ASEAN. Of course, ASEAN has the benefit of there being an ASEAN, there being a regional framework, but other regions will face and will have to answer the same questions. So that's very important. So a quick run through on the actions. So regional EPRs, regional mechanisms on data, reporting, harmonization of standards, integrating trade and social and economic communities, scaling up on circular design and harmonization efforts again. And then I would also like to point out some of the issues that are not specific to waste, but what all of you mentioned in one way or the other is the fact that the raw materials, the virgin materials are cheaper than the recycled or the secondary materials. As long as that stays, there's limitations to what can be done. So maybe this regional action could be towards disincentivizing the linear economy, so to say. I know those are aggregate terms, but somewhere these need to be translated into actions. And then, of course, plastics, construction demolition waste, agro waste, packaging waste, and e-waste as the key waste streams. And lastly, Basel Convention gives a very good framework, but somehow that's not implemented or enforced as it could have been possibly. So that's another aspect that we could look at. This was rushed. There's lots of things that have been said. I don't think we'll have time for a proper sort of conclusion, but I just want to leave this here by thanking David, Rieko, Phong, and Jason for joining. There are some 76 odd participants across the region. So thanks for them. The number has dropped because the other sessions have started, it seems. But thanks a lot for joining, for your time, for your inputs. And I know we'll be in touch again soon. So have a good week ahead. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Have a nice day.